And the first, moved by member Brown, second by member Grogan Green, be it resolved that committee adjustment agenda dated June 12th, 2023 be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Now, moved by member Bridgman, second by member Quinn, be it resolved that committee of adjustment minutes dated May 8th, 2023 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And it's carried. And Kitty, would you like to?
Morning, everyone, and welcome. It's required that I make a few statements and then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, Joe Quinn, and Sean Stokes. I confirm we have a quorum. I can also confirm that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this June 12th, 2023 agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. And now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to the committee members by Friday, June the 9th, 2023. The planner will present any submission received after this date. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you're here to speak on an application, please wait to raise your hand in Zoom until the planner presents the relevant application. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. The committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information provided at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances and the reasons for minor variance decisions are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have also been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. The motions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted that the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is then a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. And lastly, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just will caution all the presenters, as with all our other committees, you have 5 minutes. You will be warned with 30 seconds left. Okay. And the first application is B 4222 Ferdinand Holdings, and that the planner is Ms. Gillen.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Edwards and committee. The first application to be heard is consent application B 4222 ML in the name of Ferdinand Holdings Limited. The subject lands are known municipally as 3 Island R44 Sunnyside Island. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 39 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to create a new water access lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka stating they would not be opposed to the approval provided appropriate development control techniques be used to direct shoreline development outside of the type 1 fish habitat and deer wintering habitat, and or that mitigation measures be proposed that result in no negative impacts to the features or their functions. Comments were received from the Township's Emergency Services Division stating that the property is considered water access and will not receive year-round fire protection coverage. Therefore, consideration should be given to any new construction to provide additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code to mitigate the risk and spread of fire. And comments were also received from the Township's Public Works Department and the Township's Development Services Division, both stating no objections. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested consent application be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registerable description deed of the severed lot and any required rights of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire subject lands, whichever is less. 3, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. And 4, that the applicant enter into a consent agreement with the township pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act. Said agreement shall be registered against the title of the lands and contain provisions to the satisfaction of the township whereby the owner agrees A, not to utilize public parking and docking facilities as the principal means of access to the retained and severed lots, and B, that adequate long-term parking and docking facilities used to access the severed lot be secured at all times. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gillen. And I believe the agent is here, Stephen Fawner.
Yes, thank you, Chair Edwards. Stephen Fawner, Northern Division Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1A4. I apologize for my voice. Allergies kicked in on Friday. So anyways, I'll try and make it through. I would like to thank staff for their positive report, and I am here representing Virginia McLaughlin, and who is the principal of Ferdinand Holdings. So if I could just have my PowerPoint presentation put up, that would be appreciated. Okay, go on to the next slide. So this is just a severance application. What is a little bit different about this is that the developed lot is actually being called the severed lot, and the reason being is that ultimately is intended to be sold to a family member. So that's why we have the severed as the developed lot. Normally it's the reverse. In this case, Virginia is going to retain the property. It probably won't be developed for at least 10 or 15 years. Next. And this is the configuration of the property itself. Next. Just to zoom in a bit, you can see that the retained lot has ample frontage, 720 feet straight line. I don't have the actual frontage, but I would suggest it's probably about 850 or so. And then we have the severed lot with the existing development on it. Next. So this is looking at the severed lot from the water, and shows the boathouse and dwelling, and there is a sleeping cabin as well on the property. Next. And this is just a little closer in, quite modest development. Next. And this is looking towards the westerly portion of the severed lot. Next. And this is to the easterly portion of the severed lot. Next. And this is the sleeping cabin on the property. Next. And this is the septic bed. It's shown on the severance sketch as the filled area. So this is up in behind the existing development on the severed lot. Next. And this is the far corner, northwest corner of the proposed retain lot. It's a heavily vegetated property. Next. And this is the middle of that frontage, if you will. Next. And this is at the tip of the, or the point, if you will, quite close to the very narrow water body. You can see the boathouse in the background there on the left. Next. And this is that very narrow water body that I mentioned. Next. And this is on the proposed retain lot, again, flatland in the upper areas above the slopes. There's numerous building locations. Next. And this is, again, I'm standing on a spot that could be a building location, and you can see the slope down to the water. Next. And there actually is a gazebo on that, an old gazebo on the retained lot in the northwest corner of the lot. Next. And again, just showing some of the heavy tree cover and moderate slope in this location along the north side of the shore. Next. So the PPS does permit limited lot development, and the official plan and zoning bylaw does dictate lot size, which this does meet. Next. Narrow water body is also dressed with a large frontage. Water access is currently from the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club, but for the retained lot in the future will be from a private property on Worthington Point, which is very close by, and we have an agreement entered into in that respect. Next. And this is the existing waterfront landing. The water's actually on the left. This is at the east end of Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. Next. And this is the proposed waterfront landing for the retained lot. And there's room there for 5 or 6 vehicles on the property, and the shoreline structures are to the right in this particular case. And this is on Worthington Point. Next. Fish habitat, there's significant areas outside of the type 1 fish habitat that are type 2. And as I mentioned, the properties are developable. Certainly the retained is. Next. And I won't go through all the conclusions, but I think there's good reasons to support this application, and it does meet the requirements of the PPS and the official plans. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fawner. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Are there questions from the members? No questions? Excuse me. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4222 ML Ferdinand Holdings Limited, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable description deed of the separate lot and any required right of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot for the entire subject lands, whichever is less. 3, the confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. And 4, that the applicant enter into a consent agreement with the township pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act. Said agreement, it shall be registered against the title of the lands and contain provisions of the satisfaction of the township, whereas the owner agrees, 1, not to utilize public parking and docking facilities as a principal means of access to the retained and separate lots, and 2, that the adequate long-term parking and docking facilities used to access the separate lots be secured at all times. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next application is B 2523 ML Donaldson. That is again, Ms. Gilgan.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is consent application B 2523 ML in the name of Donaldson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1225 Dawson Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 90 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to create a new lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance of this meeting. A letter was received from the law office of Lancaster, Chown and Welch LLP asking for deferral on behalf of the property owners across the road at 1242, 1246 and 1250 Dawson Road. They've asked to receive the decision material from the previous consent application to create a new lot from the original parcel and the reports from staff and other commenting agencies related to the current application, which have now been sent to them. They also state concerns related to visibility for access purposes onto Dawson Road, and they are further asking for reassurance that the present zoning of the property will not be affected or changed as a result of this application. It should be noted that the property was rezoned through bylaw 2021-081 from rural RU1 to waterfront residential backlot WR2 as a condition of the previous consent. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, Bell Canada, the Township of Muskoka Lakes Building Services Division, the Township Public Works Department, and the Township's Emergency Services Division, all stating no objections. The Emergency Services Division did note that the calculated response time to the property is 12 minutes and 48 seconds. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested consent be approved, subject to the following conditions. One, that a registerable description deed of the severed lot and any required rights of way and easements be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. Two, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the severed lot or the entire subject lands, whichever is less. Three, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal and that any problems identified with any existing sewage system on the severed and retained lots be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Four, that a satisfactory environmental impact study be prepared by a qualified environmental professional to evaluate the wetland area on the severed lot and that any recommendations be implemented as necessary to the satisfaction of the township, which may include but may not be limited to entering into a consent agreement with the township under section 5126 of the Planning Act. And five, that confirmation be received from the township's Public Works Department that access to the severed lot from Dawson Road is available. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilgan. And we have Mr. Fawner again.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Edwards. For the record, Stephen Fawner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L184. I'm here representing George and Ruth Donaldson for the creation of this backlot on Dawson Road. Again, I'd like to thank staff for their positive report, and in my presentation, I will attempt to address the wetland concern. If I could just have my PowerPoint presentation put up, that would be great. Okay, so there's the proposal there. I think you're well aware. The key things is that this does meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw and the official plan for a backlot. The proposed retained lot area-wise is actually quite large. It's almost 26 acres. Next. And this is the configuration of the proposed lot. Next. Just showing the slopes, the location of this property. Unfortunately, I don't have an outline there, but certainly on lower slopes from the retained lot. The retained dwelling on the retained lot is actually quite high and has a view over Lake Rosso. This property is lower than that, the proposed lot, and I don't believe we're going to have the same kind of view over the lake. Next. And this is showing the existing location of the dwelling. The red line is the proposed lot line division. This line actually extends further to the east, actually, but it just shows the line in relationship to the existing dwelling. Next. And this is the lot frontage is of the proposed several lot is on the right. I know there was some concern voiced in the letter of objection regarding sight lines. I think the sight lines are actually quite good. And you have imposed a condition that Public Works provide an entrance permit. So I believe that that's covered. Next. And this is looking in the other direction down the road with the proposed several lot on the left. And once again, I think the sight lines are probably quite adequate. Next. This is back onto the property, and this is a possible building location. Next. And this is just another angle of that. There's just some old building material there underneath plastic on the property. But again, here's a fairly level area. There's numerous building sites on the property. Next. And you can see a little bit of slope off to the left. This does go up to the retained lot. And you can see, again, this area is pretty level. And you can see some conifer cover a little bit to the right there. This is really the only conifer cover on the whole property. Even though some of it's shown as deer habitat, there's really very little habitat there. Next. And this, again, is a little bit closer to that small conifer cover area. Again, very level here in this location where I'm standing. So, again, another good building site. Next. And this is the driveway entrance up to the retained lot. Next. And this is the winding driveway that goes up the lot. Next. And this is the dwelling that is on the retained lot. Next. And this is looking in front of the dwelling. And again, I just want to point out here, like, the very limited deer habitat in this location. That was confirmed by Beacon Environmental that there's no need to do a study, even though this area shows up on the mapping as being within stratum 2 deer habitat area. Next. So again, the PPS permits limited lot creation. The proposed lot does meet the requirement for backlots in the official plan, and the property fronts onto a year-round publicly maintained road. Next. I mentioned a letter from Beacon regarding deer habitat. There was a previous severance on the property, rural lot about 10 years ago, and then a backlot in 2021. And Lisa had noted that the property has been rezoned to waterfront backlot WR2 and meets those requirements. Next. So in terms of the wetland area, I just want to point out a couple of things. It's a very small area. My client pasted off. It's 50 feet by 150. That's actually 0.17 of an acre. When you do wetland evaluations, which is a little different than an environmental impact study, but a wetland evaluation, they only start at half of a hectare, which is 1.25 acres. So this is an extremely small area. It's not zoned as EP1. I do know that staff has a challenge with dealing with the definition of wetland because it's quite broad, but I would suggest it potentially includes a significant number of properties in the township. And I have a photo that was taken on June the 9th, so very recently, which is the next slide. Go ahead. And you'll see in this slide where it's almost dry. It's pretty much dry. And I'm not sure. I know the chair, I know Mr. Edwards, you might remember the Hickey application over on Woodruff Road. Same kind of thing where there's these small wet pockets that dry up during the year. And Beacon Environmental looked at those and they were classified as a moist forest, not a wetland area. There are some ferns here, but I know I live in a forested property behind me, and I certainly have ferns behind me, but they're not necessarily wetlands. So it's my opinion from the photos, the small area, that it's not a significant wetland area at all. It's extremely small. Next. So just in conclusions, I won't repeat them all, but I think the application is supported by the OP. And in my opinion, I don't believe that environmental report's required on that wetland areas. It's extremely small. It's 0.17 of an acre. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fawner. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? And is there anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, I thought you had, that was just the letter then. Okay. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Member King.
So there's a letter from a lawyer on behalf of a few property owners. You said that we gave them the information they asked for, and when did they receive that?
Yeah, so I emailed them, pardon me, what they had asked for. I can tell you the exact day. If you just give me a moment. It was sometime last week. It was Friday. So I sent them the passing, notice of passing of the decision for the previous consent and zoning bylaw amendment, as well as the comments that we got from Public Works and my report, which was also posted to the website.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So Lisa, what I got from that lawyer's letter is really the only thing that is contentious is the sight line for to put a road in. That's all I can see that relates to us. Am I correct?
Yes, it's already zoned to allow a severance. So there's nothing like in our policy that would speak to that from their concern. But yes, the sightline is the only thing that we still would have to address. But again, like if you grant the consent, that can be covered through the conditions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Edwards. You've got it in here, and the environmental impact study I support because we're about making sure the environment's okay. And I heard Mr. Fauner's comments about the Hickey property, but we wanted that done there too. So those are my comments.
Is there any other questions or comments? Moved by member Quinn, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 2523 ML Donaldson, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable description deed of the severed lot and any required right of way and easement be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the severed lot or the entire subject lands, whichever is less. 3, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severance and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with the existing sewage system on the severed and retained lots be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. 4, that a satisfactory environmental impact study be prepared by a qualified environmental professional to evaluate the wetland area and this on the severed lot, and that any recommendation be implemented as necessary to the satisfaction of the township, which may include but may not be limited to entering into a consent agreement with the township under section 5123 of the Planning Act, and 5, that confirmation be received from the Township Public Works Department that access to the separate lot from Dawson Road is available. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and have a great day.
Yeah, you can explain it all. Yeah, it's just so. The next application is minor variance, and that's A 1923 Brackett, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 1923 in the name of Brackett. The subject lands are known municipally as 1052 Longhurst Road, Unit 8. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 151 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a single-story boathouse addition to an existing two-story boathouse. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 21 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The following comments were received and have been circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, both stating no objection to the application. Comments have been received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing details regarding the calculated fire response time and encouraging the applicant to consult the fire department concerning fire risks associated with development. And a letter of support was received from David Dunlop, a budding property owner to the north, stating that the owner has discussed the proposed boathouse plans with him and that he has no issues with the proposal. I would be happy to read any of these comments in full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following: that the plywood enclosing the porch on the western side of the sleeping cabin be removed. Since the time of report writing, the property owner has removed the plywood from the sleeping cabin and has sent in photos to the planning department as proof of this. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? No one? Anyone in? Is there anyone in support? Anyone in? Okay, they are coming in. Thank you.
There we go. Good morning, and thank you, Chair Edwards. Eric Muntz of the DeConing Group, authorized agent, 3 Armstrong Point Road in Port Carling, Ontario, P0B 1J0. And just thank you all for your time here today. I'll be brief. I think staff did a great job with the written report. We are seeking approval for a 170 square foot addition to the existing boathouse. The purpose of the area is to allow for additional boat storage and is a very small increase at the eastern back corner. And with the way the boathouse is orientated on the shoreline, the back corner where the increased area is requested, it is not noticeable from the lake. I would also note that there is no plumbing in the boathouse. And as staff noticed, pointed out, was the plywood has already been removed from the porch of the sleeping cabin. Here to assist in answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to come in to speak in support? No one in opposition? Other questions from the members? Yes.
Just curious as to whether committee has any comment on some of the potential additions that are noted on page 140, which is the retention of existing vegetation and plantings and bringing the dock into compliance, the non-complying dock into compliance. Or if staff has any additional comments on either of those.
Thank you. Would you like to answer that?
Through you, Chair Edwards. I think that we have laid out that that's an option if committee should have an appetite for it. And I think I would look to you to see if that's something you would like to do.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll read it and we can discuss it. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A1923 bracket to construct a single-story boathouse addition is hereby approved. The following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 5,884 square feet or 11% over the area of the lot within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision is subject to the following condition, that the plywood enclosing the porch on the western side of the existing sleeping cabin being removed. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. And other questions or comments? Somebody did ask about plantings. And that, how does the committee feel about that? Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards. Ms. Crowder, I'm just wondering why you didn't ask for plantings. I mean, I'm looking at the picture and it's fairly bare at the front. And often that's part of your recommendation. So I'm just curious.
Sure. Through you, Member Bridgman. The property has some rocky terrain around the shoreline. So throughout the property, there's some good mature tree growth, but the right along the shoreline is somewhat rocky. So survivability was a consideration of the plantings. But I think that if committee should desire plantings, we could find some suitable locations. But yeah, for the most part, it was a consideration of the proposed variance in front of us and what potential plantings could be in place and the overall improvement that could be achieved. But if you should feel that plantings would be a good option, we could certainly figure out some locations.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I just wanted to elaborate a bit further with respect to some of the improvements that were noted in our report with respect to, for example, the improvement over the dock width. I think in this case, there's only one variance that's triggered, and it's from the maximum permitted lot coverage. We did note in our report that there's aspects of the boathouse and the dock that are considered legal non-complying, but I think the proposal is designed in a way that it's complying with all of the provisions in the zoning bylaw that apply to the redevelopment of those types of structures. So I think, you know, by and large, I think staff felt comfortable not recommending those measures. But of course, there are official plan policies that speak to improvements during redevelopment of legal non-complying buildings and structures. And there really are no improvements being made here. But with that being said, you know, like I said, it's the one variance. All other aspects of the proposal comply. And the property does have somewhat of a robust vegetative buffer. There are some opportunities perhaps for some improvements, but as Ms. Crowder noted, there's some rocky terrain. So I'll leave those comments with you. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the comments. What would the committee like? Yes, remember Quinn.
The plywood being removed from that room, it just looks like that room was maybe added on later. And I wondered if there's any history of when that might have been, or if there was building permits taken out, because it's not part of the original roof line. And I don't know where it sits in reference to the water, but I just have some questions on that whole structure.
Certainly, through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Quinn. I would look maybe, I can definitely elaborate a bit, but I would also maybe look to Mr. Muntz to provide some history here. But this boathouse is fairly old, or sorry, this sleeping cabin is fairly old. It used to be a dwelling. There used to be 2 dwellings on this property. Back in 1998, there was a severance, which split the parent parcel into 2 and created the lot that we're looking at today. And a condition of that was to convert this now sleeping cabin. It was a dwelling to be a sleeping cabin. So it is oversized. It's a legal non-complying structure. And the building permits from this time did include the porch. So to my knowledge, this porch wasn't added on at a later date, but a part of there were previous minor variance applications on the property, and a part of the conditions for them was to make certain alterations to the sleeping cabin. So to reduce the overall size of the sleeping cabin through some of the areas were to be converted to porches rather than part of the original habitable area of the building. So there were some changes made through that. Hopefully that helps answer, but perhaps Mr. Muntz or Mr. Sharp would.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Ms. Crowder. There is a complicated planning history associated with this property, and there have been some minor variances in the past, a severance, as Ms. Crowder had noted. So just in short, I think there was a severance. There was a condition that required this particular building to be converted to a sleeping cabin and reduced in size. There was then a building permit that was subsequently issued to see that through. That permit was finalized. And we're talking even before the current owner, that is the applicant, owned the property. I believe there was some aspects that were covered off under the building permit that were reintroduced to the building. So I believe there was a screened room. There was a requirement for the screens to be removed in order for the building to comply with the maximum permitted floor area requirement for a sleeping cabin. Those screens were then added back. All of this was addressed through the previous minor variance. And I believe when Ms. Crowder visited the property, she had noticed that the portion of the building where the screens were to be removed, they had been cladded in with some plywood cladding. And the applicant is agreeable to removing that, bringing the building back into compliance with the maximum permitted floor area requirement for a sleeping cabin. So it sounds like that work has already been done, and that condition can be struck from committee's resolution if committee is looking at approving this application. So hopefully that helps clarify. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or comments? So I will ask again about plantings. How do the committee feel? Do you think that because of the rocky terrain we'll leave it, or would you like plantings? Anyone? Leave it? Okay. So I've read it and that, so all in favor? That's carried. The next application is A2123 Boyers, and that is Ms. Gilgan.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A2123 in the name of Boys. The subject lands are known municipally as 1021 Kendon Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 175 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to construct a new dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division stating no objection. Comments were received from the Township's Emergency Services Division stating no objection, but noting the calculated response time to the property is 13 minutes and 26 seconds, and that they encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks prior to construction. Comments were received from the Township's Public Works Department stating no objection, but requesting the following condition be added to the resolution: that the applicant enter into a license agreement with the Township for the encroachment of the existing garage onto the Township Road. The Public Works Department also stated that if the construction of the new building requires alteration or reconstruction of the septic bed, it should be noted on the file that this must be completed within the applicable approved setbacks. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested minor variance application be approved, subject to the following conditions: that the as-built dwelling, shed, and dryland boathouse additions not indicated on the submitted site plan be removed. 2, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. 3, that the applicant enter into a license agreement with the Township for the encroachment of the existing garage onto the Township Road. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And who would like to speak? We have the applicant and the applicant's agent here.
Good morning, Chair Edwards. It's John Boyes. I'm the owner with my brother Philip. I'd like to thank you and the committee members for considering our proposal this morning. My address is 2295 Rosebank Road in Pickering, Ontario, L1X2R5. I just say that this property has been in our family for 3 generations, and it is a typical cottage built in the 1950s by my grandfather and my father. It was built inexpensively back then, and our goal is to improve the property, removing those old structures as noted, and to add overall value to the lake. While we appreciate the intent of the building bylaw regarding coverage, the built portion has already affected the property. And we know that keeping this coverage would allow us to make a decent home that we should be, and we feel that should be a reasonable ask. We have spoken with our neighbors and all are in agreement with this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And would the agent like to say something?
Yes, Gord Laxton, 11 Parallax Red, 1146 Highway 141, Hudderston, Ontario, E0E1M0. I think John's covered most of the items that need to be addressed. Something of note, there are 2 site plans actually submitted. One is the existing, the V0, and then there's the proposed. The V0 does show all the buildings, as you can see in that the existing house or structure, cottage, is actually, according to current bylaw, would be too close. You couldn't redevelop it within that 120% of height and coverage. However, the client has decided that he would rather have a better house and conform as much as he can. And as he mentioned, the impact of coverage has already happened. What we're doing is really consolidating it into one place back behind the 66 feet and making a much better house and ultimately improving the property that way. I do know, and I'm sure John could probably comment on this a bit more about the revegetation. There is quite a bit of rock.
Excuse me, can you speak a little closer to the mic? We're having trouble hearing you.
There is quite a bit of rock. So in terms of survivability of any vegetation might be in question. I'm sure John could probably comment a bit more on that. I believe that's all I need to comment on. Appreciate your time, Chair Edwards, and look forward to moving ahead on this.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? I have to ask, is this the application that they're asking for a license agreement, or am I wrong? Mm-hmm. It is? Okay. Okay, and I see it at the end, yes. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. Are there any questions from the members? Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Green. Be it resolved that application A 2123 Boys to construct a new 1-story dwelling with a walkout basement is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 1,451 square feet or 9.4% over the area of the entire lot. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision is subject to the following conditions. 1, that an as-built dwelling, shed, and dry land boathouse addition not indicated on the submitted site plan be removed. 2, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. And 3, that a license agreement be entered into with the township to address the encroachment of the existing garage on the road allowance associated with Kindren Road, or alternately that the encroachment be addressed through the removal or relocation of this building. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Are there any questions or comments?
Just
Yes.
one comment with respect to the Public Works notice about the septic bed. does that get added into the resolution?
Through you, Chair, it doesn't need to be part of the resolution. It's something that the Building Services Division will take care of. They're responsible for the septic, and basically they wouldn't be granted a permit outside of those parameters.
Okay,
Thank you.
anyone else? Okay, I've read the resolution. All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is a 2423 McNeil. And that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2423 in the name of McNeil. The subject lands are known municipally as 1429 Falkenberg Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 198 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct an accessory garage for personal storage purposes. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 19 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, both stating no objection to the application. Comments have also been received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing details regarding the calculated fire response time and encouraging the applicant to consult the fire department concerning fire risks associated with development. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory eastern hognose snake assessment be prepared by a qualified environmental professional and implemented as necessary through a minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act to the satisfaction of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the applicant or applicant agent here wishing to speak on this? Nope, no one else. Is there anyone in opposition? Okay. Are there questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. This is just informational for me. I know we're talking about a rural property, but I think the new OP, at least in the waterfront designation, is taking accessory buildings to 25 feet. I think I'm looking at Mr. Sharp or Mr. Pink to verify that. Did we do that for the rural areas too? I can't remember.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and it's a good question, Member Bridgman. You're correct. We did increase the maximum permitted height for a land-based accessory building to 25 feet from 20 feet. However, we did not do the same for other zones that are addressed through the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw, largely because of process. We were directed only to address specific changes with respect to accessory buildings in the waterfront designation, and there was a process behind that, so it wouldn't have been appropriate to implement that township wide. However, I would note that in the near future that we're going to begin the process of updating the township zoning bylaw, and it can be addressed as part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I look at this really as a 2-foot variance, and I'm fine with that.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
Just a question or comment on one of the analysis points on page 191. And it's under buildings/structures not shown on the site plan. At the bottom of that paragraph, it says it's unclear if this building is lawful or if it complies with zoning provisions. I'm just wondering how that comment gets addressed.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, so great question, Member Stokes. We have contacted the township's building department regarding this structure, and it is my understanding that an order is being placed on this structure. Doesn't appear that there is a building permit for it, so the building department is involved and will is planning to enact an order that will bring this structure into compliance.
Thank you. That was my other question, if there was a building permit.
Anyone else? Yes.
The requirement for the study for the hognose snake are they using the 2009? Or would it be something that had to be more current?
Through you, Chair Edwards, to you, Member Quinn, this would be a new letter or study done by an environmental professional, just so that it is specific to the proposed building in question.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 2423 McNeil to construct an accessory storage building is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a maximum accessory height of 27 feet. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory eastern hognose snake site assessment be prepared by a qualifier and environmental professional and implemented as necessary through a minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act to the satisfaction of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
One quick question.
Yeah.
So the comment about the permit, that doesn't go in the resolution either. That's
No, it's
that's
being
dealt
looked
with- that's
after
dealt
by
with
the building department, is that correct?
Through you, Chair Edwards, it's correct. It will be handled through building.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. The next application is A 2523, and that's Ms. Gillen.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance A-2523 in the name of Seniac. The subject lands are known municipally as 1218 Whites Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 220 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to recognize as-built porches. Notice of public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting. 4 neighbors submitted letters of support to the township in relation to the application in advance of this meeting. Neil and Debbie McKay, neighbors 2 doors to the east, John Deviney, neighbor to the immediate west, Art and Jerry Malley, neighbors 2 doors to the west, and Alice and Garth Sweetnam, neighbors 3 doors to the west, stating they have no concerns with the size of the home in relation to the property. A letter from Maria Hildebrandt, the neighbor to the immediate east, was also received outlining concerns related to privacy and noise in relation to the front porch on the 2nd story of the building, as shown in figure 2 of the staff report. They've requested their proposed porch have a closed wall installed on the southeast side corner to create a visual and sound barrier. They also asked why they weren't circulated with regard to the building permit for the dwelling, and then township staff informed them that building permits need only be posted on the property and are not circulated to neighbors the way minor variance applications such as this are. Comments were received from the Township of Muskoka Lakes Building Services Division, the Township Public Works Department, and the Township Emergency Services Division, stating no objections. The Emergency Services Division also noted the calculated response time to the property is 9 minutes and 27 seconds, and that they encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks prior to construction. In this case, the building has already been built. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering approval of the application, staff have recommended the following condition: that the existing sleeping cabin be relocated as intended beyond 200 feet from the high water mark and in compliance with applicable zoning provisions. Alternatively, committee could consider a reduction in lot coverage or a reduction in overall built form through further structure removals, increased plantings and the like. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see we have the applicant's agent, Ms. Ledger.
Yes, good morning, Chair Edwards and committee members. Terry Ledger, agent for the applicant, 167 Medora Street for Carling T0B1J0. And I believe the owners are also with us. If you have any questions.
Excuse me, can you speak a little closer to the mic? We're having trouble hearing
Oh,
you.
sorry, it's my whole computer. So let me just do a close up. So this is a lot coverage application. I think maybe some background is in order here. As you can see, it's a built project already. And so I'll just sort of briefly take you through how that transpired, why we're here, how we got to be where we are today. This project is a kit home. It was ordered on advice from the builder that it conformed and everything was okay. When it came time to permitting, the Senyx approached me to help them finish off a site plan, plumbing drawings and things like that, and make the application. And it was at that time that we realized it was over the lot coverage. So in order to sort of keep things rolling, as everything was in progress already, we applied with some roofing removed to make the lot coverage work. And then with knowledge that we had to apply for this minor variance, which we are doing today. Reason why it's a little late is actually my fault, not Senyx. Just amount of work, and that's the way things go these days. But so that's kind of on me. So I apologize. So I guess the big sort of point here is it's a little bit over what would normally be considered the 1% or 10% of 8%, which is 8.8. So we're actually below lot coverage for the entire lot, but it's within the first 200 feet. We've removed sort of all the other outbuildings. The bunkie will be moved back. It's a bigger project, so that's in the works. And but to bring us to the 9%, it's basically because of the lot size. It's actually only just over 39 square feet is the extra we're asking for. I think in terms of built form over the natural environment, I'm not sure that would make any difference. It would probably be on the back side if that were to happen. As for the neighbor's comment on the addressing some of the sound and privacy issues, I'm sure the Senyx would be happy to do something that would mitigate that concern, maybe work with their neighbors. As you can see, they've approached most of the neighbors we've heard from that are affected. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Other questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just a quick question to Lisa, because it looks to me like there's a fairly good tree coverage for that neighbor that is asking for the wall, but it looks to me like it's pretty well vegetated. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Yes, I did think that the lot overall was well vegetated. The properties are close together, but the buildings meet the setbacks for the zone. So it falls within what's allowable.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
In some of the overage in the variance of the coverage, that I guess the entrance deck is counted in that because it's more than 4 feet overhang.
Sorry, do you mean at the back, the covering there? Yes. So yeah, that I took a tape measure. It's about 11 feet from the front of the building to the end of that. And the pillars reach all the way to the ground. So it's considered part of the coverage.
So that's good architecture and that's adding to the coverage. So it's not just all interior space.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions or comments? The neighbor did ask for the wall. I just want to know what your thoughts are. You said it's well covered and that. I know there was one on Skelton Lake that it was very close to the lot line and they added something, they had to put something on the end, but that's fine. I will read this. Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 2523 segment to relocate a sleeping cabin and recognize as-built porches is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 1,822 square feet or 9% of the area of the lot within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that the existing sleeping cabin be relocated as intended beyond the 200 foot from the high water mark and in compliance with the applicable zoning provisions. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Questions or comments? Yes.
I just have one comment related to the idea of a wall. Like I agree that it looks like there's some vegetation there, but could we add some pines or something like to further enhance? Like it's hard to tell because we don't have a photo, I don't think, of the neighbor, but well, maybe not when I see that on, sorry, page 210. I'm not sure that there's any room. I'm taking my comment back.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. No, now is the time to do it. Anyone else?
Just further to that comment and further to the comment from the agent, regardless of what's put in the resolution, it's probably not the worst idea for the two neighbors to have a communication about that issue.
Yes, that's fine.
But would the neighbor need, or the applicant need our support for a wall in that area? Or from planning or building going forward if it's not talked about or discussed today?
The wall would fall under the roof covering. So as far as planning is concerned, it wouldn't affect the coverage. They might have to adjust their building plans. I'm not 100% sure. They probably would have to update that, but yeah, it wouldn't have changed what you're approving today.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I have read the motion. All those in favor? And it's carried.
Thank you very much.
Take a break. Yes, and we'll take a 10-minute comfort break now. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. And the next application is A2623 Baghdadi, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A2623 in the name of Baghdadi. The subject lands are known municipally as 35 Estate Drive. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 237 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built two-story garage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating that the construction of the garage was not located in compliance with the building permit issued, and Building Code Act orders have been placed. If approved, a building permit amendment is required to address the building location and potential spatial separation requirements as a result of the reduced side yard setback. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating no objection to the application. And comments have been received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing details regarding the calculated fire response time. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Excuse me. So we have the applicant or applicant's agent wishing to speak on this.
There's Scott Petrie, 1006 Clear Lake Road, Torrance, Ontario, as acting as the agent for the applicant. There's really not much to say. It's a bit of a comedy of errors. Apparently, instead of getting the proper footings properly cited by a surveyor, they measured off existing buildings which were already built incorrectly. Or located incorrectly. So we have this sort of pre-existing condition that the current owner adopted when they acquired the property, and we're just trying to rectify it.
Okay, is that all?
That's really it. It's fairly straightforward.
Well, that's fine. I just give it your time. Is there anyone else who's wishing to speak in support? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Yes.
First off, thank you for the great time. Appreciate that. I'm sure you heard that comment.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very quiet room, by the way. And I'm not used to being on TV, but then again, I'm not on TV, so that's okay. I think my first question has been addressed.
I need your name.
Oh, sorry. My name is Brian Baldry. My surname is spelled Bauldry. I live at 26 Estate Drive. And I did not receive a letter about this particular meeting, but then again, neither did quite a few of my neighbors. I'm not sure who I addressed that to. Okay. I think my first question has been answered, and that was that there was a building permit issued. I'm also not certain who I addressed that to. The building permit part of it?
And that, would the planner like to answer that, Emily?
Sure. Yeah, to my knowledge, there was a building permit that was issued, and the actual placement of the footings was not in compliance with the permit that was issued.
Okay, so does that mean that there was no site survey as part of the building permit?
I think that I would probably look to the building department to speak directly about what was done.
Is the building department here presently or a representative? No. Did the building permit application indicate that the location of the structure complied with existing bylaw setback requirements? See, when you're using imperial terms, I'm familiar with the metric system, but the imperial terms, to say that something is, for example, out by 11 feet, where the existing bylaw requires that there be a 15-foot setback, and there's only a 4-foot setback now. I'm not sure how the term minor variance applies in this case, because 11 feet or close to 4 meters, that's not minor. Couple of centimeters might be minor. 11 feet or close to 4 meters, that's not minor at all. So assuming there was a permit, assuming there was no site survey, I'm not sure how the term minor variance even applies to this situation, because it's not minor at all. Then I have rhetorical questions, and they don't have to be addressed. But my final rhetorical questions are this: that I did go online yesterday. I found that whereas the particular building used to be, and perhaps still is, a rental unit, that rental unit has 5.5 bathrooms. So to build a structure in which another bathroom is included is like, it's mind-boggling. I don't understand it. The second part to that rhetorical question is just this. Apparently there is parking for 4 vehicles. This building has a lift system. It will actually, you could put 4 vehicles in there. So 4 vehicles, 5.5 bathrooms. Why would you need another structure that was a garage? Why would you need another garage? Why would you need a garage with a bathroom? How is a building that has a garage door, how does that qualify as a garage? I don't believe it does. So again, questions that the last 2 didn't have to be answered, but they've been stated. So am I in opposition? I definitely am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this?
Good morning. Robin Cooper-Thwaite, my husband Brian is here with me. 33 Estate Drive, Port Carling, P0B1J0. For the record, we were not notified of this committee meeting. And we oppose the build of this 2-story garage. With respect, I understand that you had somebody go out and take pictures of our neighbor's lot. And respectfully, I understand, standing on the ground, he would not have seen that we have a deck. We are a 2-story walkout with an existing deck. From there, he could not see our lack of privacy. The homeowner, given the integrity of the build on this home, we have no reason but to believe the same integrity will be followed in final construction of the garage. Although the permit says usage for storage, a bathroom can be installed. This leaves us to believe windows will be installed on this 2nd story. Our concern is the lack of privacy we currently experience, with the garage exemplifying it further. We are surrounded on all 3 sides of our back by huge vegetation of mature trees until we get to that corner. Given that our neighbor is 11 feet over the setbacks at any time during excavation for footings, you would have to go a minimum of 4 feet out, which leaves us only on our assumption to understand trees were removed. We ask this committee, if you move forward in the build of the 2-story garage, that we get a minimum of 6 to 7 evergreen trees planted after final inspection has been granted on this build in an expedited time to allow for growth. If final comes in the winter, obviously we'd have to wait until spring, but certainly soon after. Given the life, where the homeowner would have to maintain the integrity of growth of these trees for a minimum of 3 years, and should they die within that period of time, they be replaced. From our back deck, we have security cameras. I've zoomed in on my camera so that when you see these other pictures, that arrow is pointing to a security camera. That security camera can be seen from our bedroom, living area, and sitting area that all have windows, as well as to the front of our home, where, oh, actually, it's this one. This is from my kitchen sink at the front of our home. From our sitting area, there is his security camera on the far corner. And again, from our back deck. And from our living area last night, his lights. This second-story garage is going to eliminate a lot of this being, but given the integrity of what he has already built, we have to assume that the same integrity will be put into the second-story garage with exterior lighting, security cameras, and windows. As it comes more forward to our home, we have been invaded hugely, grossly, with the lack of privacy, for which we really hope you will take into consideration and have our homeowner, existing, new, whoever they are, have trees planted at least 6 or 7 to a minimum of 10 feet soon after final occupancy has been granted. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to ask you if you could share those pictures.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, because we didn't know of this meeting, we didn't have time to fully prep, so you are more than welcome to have all of them.
Thank you. Then I will pass them around and we'll put them in the record.
If somebody else wanted to speak.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to pass these around and then we will let you speak.
Okay, I'm her husband.
No. Mhm. Nope. And then over to Kitty when you're finished. And if I could ask the planner, I'm looking at page 226. And if that garage was moved 11 feet forward, it would almost be in the driveway, would it not?
Sorry, Chair Edwards, can you repeat your question?
Yes, if you look at page 226 on our agenda, where that garage is, if it came 11 feet forward, it would almost be into the driveway. Is that not correct?
Through you, that is correct. It has, it would be in part of the area that was constructed as a driveway. That being said, the driveway is somewhat spacious. So I don't know that it would impact the usability of the driveway, but let me see if I have a more clear photo of the driveway that I can share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, sir, you wanted to speak? Okay, that's fine.
Just be a couple seconds. Hi, I'm Rob Ladder, and this is my wife, Ann. We are the homeowners of 34 Estate Drive, Port Carling, P0B1J0. We are directly across the street from this the house that's in discussion. The only thing I'd like to say for the record is that we also did not receive a letter of information. And we really just found out about this meeting recently. So just want to put that on record. Also want to put on record that we are opposed to the request. Thank you.
Right.
Excuse me, Mr.
Ladder?
P-A-L-A-N-T-Z-A-S?
So, pardon me?
No, the person that was just speaking.
That was me.
34 Estate Drive?
Correct.
We mailed something out to 34 Estate Drive, and the name on that address is P-A-L-A-N-T-Z-A-S.
That is the right address, but that is not our name.
So something was mailed out to that address. You reside at that address, you would have gotten some mail that.
But we would have probably returned it as
but
occupant, not here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Baldry 26 Estate Drive. You're just outside of our circulation zone. And 38 Estate Drive was the other one? 33. 33 SEGRIFF Matthew. Yeah, 33 Estate Drive. So in both those cases, we did mail them out, and because the names weren't up to date. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out whether proper circulation was given or not.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Were you there the last election? Did you get your notice for the election? You didn't get one? Okay, so we'll have to get our record straightened out then, obviously. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this?
Through State Drive. I just wanted to say I'm a builder. I've built over 400 houses a year for over 30 years. And I have never seen a minor variance at 11 feet. To me, it's ridiculous. Who did the footing inspection? I don't know how this could happen. An inspector goes out, does a footing inspection, notice where the footing is, he stops the building. So why this wasn't stopped at that point and fixed, I think this was calculated, and that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
On the homework.
Mr. Short.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm just reviewing our circulation list. As you know, staff pride themselves in being very diligent in making sure that the correct notice goes out. In fact, under the Planning Act, minor variances are required to be circulated within a distance of 200 feet from a subject property, but under council direction, we go to 400 feet.
Right.
And I'm just noticing some alarming discrepancies in our circulation list. I'm noticing that some of the names obviously don't match up with certain members of the public that are here today. I'm also noticing it appears that the Cooper-Thwaites were not circulated when they're well within the distance. So what I would suggest is that the committee adjourn this application so that the notice can be recirculated, and that way going forward we can make sure that we've done everything that we need to do to be in compliance with the Planning Act. I am hearing some concerns from the neighbor or from the neighbors, I should say, in particular the Cooper-Thwaites. It seems as though they would be desirous of some plantings along one of the side lot lines to help mitigate the impact, or what they feel to be the impact. So that may be something that could be further investigated as part of the adjournment if that's what committee decides to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that I was thinking the same thing. But I see we have the building inspector on, I believe. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm hearing some concern about the building inspection process from the neighbors. I just want to advise committee and the neighbors and people in attendance that an inspection was conducted for a footing inspection. At that time, it was identified that the building was too close to the side lot line, and the owners were advised to not proceed. It appears that they proceeded without having passed inspection, and orders were placed on the building at that time. I hope that helps to add some clarity to the questions raised today.
Could you just clarify that? So it was when the footings, so the shell has gone up since that? Or was the shell up when you did the inspection?
No, they've constructed the foundation and up to the first floor framing, or second floor framing, if you will, without having passed inspection, passed footing inspection or framing inspection, and in contravention of the direction provided by this department.
Okay, thank you very much. You had a question?
I have a question that goes back to maybe the first variance or something that was approved on the main house on this property. It looks like the front corner of the balcony is 5.5 feet roughly. I just wondered when that was, whether that was a minor variance ahead of time or whether that was something was built and we had to put through a process later.
Could someone answer that?
Yeah. Go. Through your chair, Edwards, and to you, Member Quinn. I see you're looking forward here at the what appears to be sort of an addition on the dwelling. That's about 5 feet 6.25 inches. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking into this. If you can just give me one moment. Yeah, so I think we'll just need to look into the building permit here because if it was issued for that portion to be as a dwelling, then it is closer to the side lot line than what would be permitted. So with that understanding, a building permit would not have been issued without a variance. I don't have a variance on file for this, so I think that's something that we could look into unless Mr. Sharp has something to add. But I was just going to finish by saying, you know, if that was built closer than what was permitted through the building permit, that's something that would need to be addressed as well. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards, just to further elaborate on Ms. Crowder's answer. In this particular instance, there was a zoning bylaw amendment approved, I believe, in the 1990s. Not with respect to the side yard, though. I believe likely what's happened is back when this building was constructed, there was a lesser side yard requirement stipulated in the township's zoning bylaw, and it's likely that that building is legal non-complying. However, you know, obviously it's a bit of a complicated thing that's difficult for me to confirm just on the spot here. But we could certainly confirm for you if the application is adjourned. But that's my sneaking suspicion of what's gone on here, that building was constructed at a lesser setback because that's what was stipulated in the zoning bylaw at that time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Because looking at page 237, if you moved 11 feet out, it'd be right in front of that house. In other words, if you took the 15 feet, it would be right in their driveway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was just
Which makes me wonder if it was a mistake. Yes.
Thank you, committee. Just to clarify or confirm Mr. Sharp's comments, zoning bylaw 8787 previously zoned all community residential zones the same, and it would have been a 6-foot side yard setback, which would comply. It was through 2014 that we identified waterfront lots in the community and imposed a 15-foot setback. So that happened in 2015. So provided this dwelling was built prior to 2015 or obtained a building permit, it would have been a 6-foot side yard at the time.
Thank you. We've heard the recommendation from the planning department to adjourn this meeting so it can be recirculated. And that also, I don't know if there's windows on the back of that second story in that, but if it was to stay there, I'd like to see maybe no windows. Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I just wanted to close up that item that Mr. Pink was speaking to. The dwelling was constructed in 2017. That's when we have the permit on file here. So we would need to look into that a little bit and see if maybe there was a previously existing dwelling that had that 6-foot setback, that perhaps they continued those rights forward, but the dwelling that we're looking at is 2017.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I don't really understand why we're contemplating bringing it back with just trees added when the whole thing is just illegal. It just seems.
Excuse me.
It seems to me that we should be considering having it moved to comply. Because I can tell in the drawing, in the photos, the garage is placed so that they have a nice view at the rear yard. And it's at the expense of the neighbors. If somebody put an illegal garage 4 foot from my property line, I'd be very upset about it. Unfortunately, I have a grandfathered building there. But in reality, it's distressing to me to have something that close. So I understand how somebody would feel.
Okay.
I feel that it's sometimes 11 foot on 15 is not a minor variance. And I think that you have to look at every case independently. I think that this is more than a minor variance. And by deferring it, I hope that the applicant and the neighbors can come to terms to where he has some support, because at this point with what it is, And without the neighbor support, I wouldn't be voting for it.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment? I think at this point we'll adjourn it. And that's so it can be recirculated. Sorry, sir, it's gone to committee. But we'll adjourn this at this time. And I hope that the staff have taken note of everything that was said. And we'll bring it back. Thank you. Oh, yes, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just have one quick question. This is just for clarification. So when this comes back, all non-complying or illegal or whatever will come back to us at that point? This motion will be revised to deal with everything that's found. I'm just not sure of the process. So if you could help me with that, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. What I have in my notes is a adjournment to recirculate the application, consideration of plantings, consideration of an increased setback, consideration of no windows, I believe at the back of the as-built garage, and consideration of confirmation of the lawful nature or unlawful nature, whatever the case may be, of the existing dwelling. So those are all the items that we'd look to clarify when we bring this matter back.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So that is adjourned. It'll be recirculated.
Is that a spare one?
Well,
just a minute. Sorry. Yes, sir. Just a second. Would you like to comment?
I guess if we're adjourning, it's of little import. I know the current owners are planning on removing the bathroom from the plan. I believe there was a bathroom and perhaps a small kitchenette or something going in there under the initial permit. That's all being revised and changed. The full second story is being reduced to a half story. With respect to windows on the back, that's something I could discuss with them. I don't see that being a really large issue because it is being switched entirely to a storage style unit where I'm not even entirely sure what the previous the intention of the previous owners were. That said, I mean it is built as is. It isn't something we've adopted, but we can do our level best to sort of work within whatever parameters you do come up with. So
okay, would the owner consider making that a single story garage?
Well, I guess it will be. It's just going to be a storage loft with a couple of the plan as described to me thus far has been a single story with a half story storage sort of loft above it with a couple of dormers facing out on the driveway side. But nothing more beyond that. They've got a couple of additional vehicles that they want inside that are above and beyond what is they're capable of storing in the existing garage structures that they've got there. So
okay, so in other words, if they're just using it for storage of cars, there is a chance that it could be just reduced to a single story garage. But anyway, talk it over with the owners. And you can get back to them because like I say, you can see what the opposition is. And there's some committee members are concerned about it, definitely. So I would revise it if I was you, but that's up to you, sir.
Well, again, it's out of my hands as well. But I will talk to them about that reducing. As I said, the plans have currently, as described to me, have been to reduce from a full 2-story to at least a sort of a half story or a single story with some sort of amenities for storage above. But the other interior items, the bathroom and whatnot, are to be excluded from the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just wait till everyone leaves here. And the next application is a 2723 Armstrong Gibson, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A2723 in the names of Armstrong and Gibson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1090 Boyce Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 258 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to reconstruct and enlarge a single-story dwelling with a walkout basement and additions, including a porch and a sun deck. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating that reduction in setbacks from the road allowance can present future maintenance issues and increased costs associated with tree maintenance. Public Works would prefer that the setbacks from the road allowance be achieved, if at all possible, and no closer than the current condition. Comments have been received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing details regarding the calculated fire response time and encouraging the applicant to consult the fire department concerning fire risks associated with development. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here?
Good morning, Chair Edwards and committee. I'm Wendy Armstrong Gibson, 80182 Front Road, Clinton, N0M1L0. Just very briefly, we are looking to replace our family cottage that my great-grandfather built in 1933. The front setback we are requesting would allow us to retain our current view of the lake. It would allow us to avoid any blasting and would limit the number of trees needing to be removed to 2. With the setback approval, we would still sit back from the road further than the majority of our neighbors. And those are the points we'd like to share this morning, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Okay, are there questions from the members? Yes,
Just the comment from Public Works, I think needs to be considered with respect to the resolution, but the maintenance issues.
Through you, Chair Edwards, to you, Member Stokes. The comment from Public Works, I've been in contact with Public Works. Given when I received the comment versus when this meeting was, there wasn't a chance for comments to potentially be revised, but there is discussion going on to clarify that there are 2 setbacks included in the zoning bylaw. One is from the setback to a public street or an unopened road allowance, which is 25 feet. And the other is a setback from a front lot line, which differs depending on what zone you're in. So in this situation, the proposal is compliant with the setback from a public street, which is typically what Public Works has comment or concern about, and that is the 25 foot. This proposal is seeking to be, I believe, 40 feet from the front lot line. So it adheres to that setback, which is typically where road maintenance and tree maintenance issues are considered. This proposal is not compliant with the front yard setback, the setback from the front lot line, which is what they're seeking relief from. So we're in discussions with Public Works about this, and I think it's more so a bit of a miscommunication. I don't want to speak on behalf of Public Works, but typically when we receive this comment from them, it is when a proposal seeks to be within that 25 feet from the lot line abutting a public street.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. So I don't want to hold this application up as this is unclear. How do we word that? I guess I'm asking Chair Edwards. I mean, if you don't need this, you don't need that consideration.
Maybe
I
Mr.
think
Sharp
I
could
think
answer
I'm not
that.
describing this very well. But if it isn't an issue, can we pass this today, but make sure it's not an issue, dependent on it not being an issue? I'm not quite sure.
Through you, Chair Edwards, again, I'm hesitant to speak on behalf of Public Works, but I think Ms. Crowder is correct. It's largely a misunderstanding. The comment that we've received from Public Works is a pretty standard comment with respect to development within a 25-foot setback. Just to restate again what Ms. Crowder's indicated, a 25-foot setback is required from a lot line abutting a public street. The proposal that's in front of you today exceeds that setback quite considerably. So I think, you know, I think committee can proceed with making a decision on this application today. But those, you know, that's my comment. Obviously, Public Works isn't here to speak for themselves, but reading between the lines, that's what I'm concluding from this. So thank you.
Ms. Crowder, could you just read the Public Works comments just so that everyone is clear on this, so that there's no misunderstanding?
Absolutely, through you, Chair Edwards. So the comment from Public Works is that a reduction in setbacks from the road allowance can present future maintenance issues and increased costs associated with tree maintenance. Public Works would prefer that the setbacks from the road allowance be achieved, if at all possible, and no closer than the current condition. So they do speak directly to the road allowance.
I think I'm good with it. I think knowing the area and the terrain, I think it's fine to have that. I'm okay with it.
Chair Edwards. I apologize. Your microphone is not on,
Sorry.
so members on Zoom can hear.
Okay, good. Thank you. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 2723 Armstrong Gibson to reconstruct a one-story dwelling with a walkout basement and additions, including porches, and to construct a new sun deck is hereby approved with the following variants being granted. 1, to permit a dwelling addition to be set back 34 feet at the closest point from the front lot line. 2, to permit an increase in height of an existing dwelling and dwelling addition to be set back 11 feet at the closest point from the southerly side lot line. And 2, to permit a sun deck to be 7 feet at the closest point from the southerly side lot line. These variants are granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next application is A 2923 St. Thomas Severance Warehouse Limited. That's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2923 in the name of St. Thomas Sufferance Warehouse Limited. The subject lands are known municipally as 1111 Gulf Avenue Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on site plans on pages 288 to 290 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to reconstruct an existing two-story boathouse and to construct a single-story addition with a rooftop sun deck onto the two-story boathouse containing a housekeeping unit, boat slips, and marine storage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating that no habitable space is permitted on the first story of the boathouse. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating no objection to the application. And comments have been received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing details regarding the calculated fire response time and encouraging the applicant to consult the fire department concerning fire risks associated with development. I would like to note that on page 281 of the agenda package, there is a typo in the analysis referencing Lake Muskoka. The correct lake is Lake Rosso. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have the agent or the applicant's owner? Yes.
Yes, hello again. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Eric Muntz of the DeConing Group, authorized agent, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. And thank you all again for your time here today. I think staff may have mentioned that this application was previously here under a different application. And it was under understanding that there was no other reliefs required for the increase in height. But we are now here seeking approval for the small increase to the height at the existing legal non-compliant setback of 15 feet. And of course, the height complies with the current bylaw requirements and is slightly below the max requirement. There is a cupola proposed there that I'm sure you noticed, but that is fully in conformance with what the bylaw permits. We did send in a letter respectively requesting a refund for this application. Just wondering if that was received.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I can speak to that. It's my understanding that given the circumstances, just for a bit of background, this application was originally submitted a couple months ago. At that time, 1 variance was applied for, which was the side yard for the single-story boathouse addition. After approval of that application, it became made aware that the increase in height of the second story of this boathouse also triggers relief from the bylaw, hence the application in front of you today. Given that the second variance wasn't applied for, but staff do our best to catch any variances that would need to be applied for as part of a proposal. My understanding is that the Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability felt it was fitting to waive the fee for the application, this second application. So that's my understanding, that the fee was never paid for this application that's in front of you today.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's all for me then. I'm here to help in answering any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else we can support? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Yes.
A quick clarification with respect to the comment from Development Services that no habitable space is permitted on the first story of the boathouse. Is that just a standard comment, or is there an expectation that habitable space will be made on the first story of this boathouse.
Through you, Chair Edwards, you Member Stokes. This is sort of a comment that could go without saying, so to speak, but I think that because there is a housekeeping unit in the boathouse of the second story, Development Services just wanted to make super clear that there would be no habitable space permitted in the first story, and that housekeeping unit would need to remain as part of the second story only. So it was just sort of a just reinforcing that fact more than anything.
Okay, thank you. Does that go on the resolution or no? That's just a standalone comment.
Through you, Chair Edwards, no, that's just sort of a standalone comment. It hasn't been included in the resolution because it's goes without needing to be on there.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Okay, are there any other questions? Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Brogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 2923 St. Thomas Supplements Warehouse Limited to reconstruct an existing two-story boathouse with an increase in height is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a side yard setback of 15 feet at the closest point from the northeasterly side lot line projection. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
And the next application is a 3123 Welton. And that is Ms. Gilligan.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3123 in the name of Welton. The subject lands are known municipally as 1232 Halls Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 312 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to recognize an existing storage building. Notice of public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of today's meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division stating it should be noted that building permit 2019-0093 was issued to remove the storage building in question, and that the removal was required prior to occupancy being granted for the new two-story boathouse building permit 2019-0099. This requirement would result in a compliant lot coverage. Comments were also received from the Township's Public Works Department and the Township's Emergency Services Department stating no objection. The Emergency Services Department also noted the calculated fire response time to the property is 17 minutes and 33 seconds, which is outside of the NFPA's rural response time objective of 14 minutes. Consultation with the fire department to minimize fire risk is prudent. However, it should be noted the structures which are the subject of this application have already been built. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended approval of the minor variance subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory stormwater management brief be prepared by a qualified professional engineer and that it be implemented as necessary to the satisfaction of the township. And 2, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for any necessary implementation of the required stormwater management brief and for retention of vegetation and plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the staff recommendation for approval. I'll just give you a little bit of background. We purchased the property in 26. Oh, sorry. My name is John Welton. My address is 148 Shaws Road, Blue Mountains, Ontario, L9Y0R7.
Okay, thank you.
We purchased the property in 2016, and it was a property that was built around the turn of the century, and it was quite an intensive waterfront usage. And so the way that we went about rebuilding on the property was we lived in the 4-bedroom home that was completely built over the water, and it had a boat port and a boat house. And so that allowed us to demolish the cottage and a couple of other buildings that were on the property. And at that point, when we were approved to do that, we were permitted to keep the storage building that's the subject of this application. And so after we built the cottage, then we made the application to remove all of the things that had been done on the property on the water. And I gather that's when we missed understanding that we needed to demolish this building. So we proceeded along until we had to do our final inspections. And then it was brought to our attention that we actually had to demolish the storage building. And so we've applied for this minor variance. But one thing that I would point out to the committee was that the previous cottage was about 14 feet off of the water. And so, and with the other cottage over the water and the boathouses, there was very little vegetation on the waterfront on this property. So I also saw the comment from staff about the paving of the driveway, and that was something that I missed, I guess, in the site plan agreement, because I wasn't aware that it was an issue to change the gravel driveway to a paved driveway for permeability reasons. So I don't have a concern with addressing that through a stormwater report. But I'm a little concerned about the comments about revegetating, because this property had very little vegetation there before. And so we landscaped, and unfortunately, I think there must be a few trees that we're missing down in the waterfront, and we're willing to do those. And so I'm here to answer any questions of the committee.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Or questions from the members? Yes, Member Stokes.
Yeah, I guess my major concern here is that there's a number of issues. You know, there's lot coverage, there's the parking and drive, there's the plantings not being done. And I'm not sure what that's indicative of, but there seems to be either somebody's not reading the information that they're getting, or they're just completely ignoring the township's rules, and I don't know how to take that, but that's the way that it appears to me.
Anyone else? Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Mr. Welton, your storage unit looks an awful lot like a cabin to me. Is there a washroom in that storage unit?
The answer is it was used as a bunkie before. And so part of the approval process required us to remove the screens. There's no power to that. There's no bathroom to it. And the reason that we like to use it is because we don't have a garage on the property, and we don't want to build a garage. So we find it quite convenient to store the lawn furniture, the kayaks, the canoes. And so for that reason, it's worth keeping. There are no improvements inside. It's a very basic building, and no one sleeps there. And to answer your question, there is no plumbing or electricity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No.
So there was a requirement that this storage facility got removed, and it was not removed. So it looks like a pretty nice storage facility, and it's really not in keeping with the very modern boathouse that it's behind, which makes me think that it'll eventually be changed. And You know, the original provision was that it be removed and it's not removed. So I don't know why we would give a variance to when this whole cottage was built with the understanding that it would be removed.
Well, if I can address the committee, the original application for the cottage was approved to be remained. And so during the course of handling the building permit application for the boathouse was when I wasn't aware that we needed to demolish it, and we were using it because we were storing the things that had been torn out of the boathouse.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I can try and maybe just help clarify a couple of items with respect to process as it relates to the storage building. So my understanding in a review of our past site plan application is that basically there was a two-story boathouse, and the building in question, the storage building that's in front of you today, was a sleeping cabin. And Mr. Welton had applied at that time to enlarge the existing dwelling, which wouldn't otherwise have been permitted if there were two sleeping cabins on the property. So through discussions, I believe, with planning staff and the building department, there was a requirement as part of that site plan application to convert the use of the building that's in front of you today to a storage building, which would allow him to enlarge the existing dwelling. And there was also the issue of lot coverage. Retaining the building, again, the storage building, would cause an increase in lot coverage. So it's 10.7%. That's the variance that's in front of you today. There was a building permit issued to remove the building, but just to clarify what Mr. Welton ultimately wants to achieve is he wants to keep the building. And hence a minor variance application has been applied for, which is one of his rights as a landowner to submit an application to the township. So I just wanted to make those points for clarification. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I'd be able to make one final comment.
I will let you, but just make it quick.
Okay, well, there's been a bit of a characterization about avoiding the obligations to revegetate the lot, and that's certainly not the case here. I've done extensive landscaping, and so what I missed was the detail of the 2 birch trees and the 3 pine trees. And so I've also indicated I'm perfectly willing to follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 3123 Welton to recognize an existing storage building is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 6,403 square feet or 10.7% over the area of the lot within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory stormwater brief be prepared by a qualified professional engineer and that it be implemented as necessary to the satisfaction of the township. And 2, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for any necessary implementation of the required stormwater management brief and for retention of vegetation and planting to revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's carried. And I don't think there's any other business that we have to do. Everything is looked at, so. Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourned at 11:30 a.m. All those in favor? and is carried.